It's almost the fantasy playoffs, and if you have these players, you're probably panicking. Welcome back, Endgame community. I'm Chris, and let's talk about some panic players. All right, let's start with the obvious one, and that is Ezekiel Elliott. There was a lot of uncertainty going into that Thursday night game. Was he going to play? Was he going to be limited? He really wasn't limited. He, got his usual snaps, his usual touches. Tony Pollard obviously was mixed in. But the big issue to me is Zeke just doesn't look right. That knee is bothering him. He doesn't have that explosiveness. He does get 10 days to rest here, but I'm not sure that's enough. You've got to be really worried here if you have Ezekiel Elliott. Is Pollard just going to get more and more work as the season goes on, looking like the fresher, healthier back? So if you got Ezekiel Elliott, you've got to be panicking headed into your playoffs. All right, I hate to do it, but I got to put Saquon Barkley on here again. Still giving you a really nice floor in PPR leagues. He did have over 13 fantasy points this week because he is involved in the passing game, but he's still not getting the work that we need from a first round or second round pick. And the other thing is he's not getting chances to score. He's not getting those goal line opportunities because this Giants offense, whether it's Mike Glennon, Daniel Jones, or maybe even Jake Fromm next week, can't really move the ball. We've got to look at Saquon Barkley as nothing more than an RB2 rest of the season. He does have a decent schedule. He does have a nice floor. But again, not what you want to see headed into your fantasy playoffs if you're still even alive with Saquon Barkley. Moving on to a big name wide receiver now, DeAndre Hopkins did get you 11 fantasy points, did get a touchdown, but outside of that really did nothing. Only 2 targets today, which was second on the team. That's the crazy thing. It's not that DeAndre Hopkins isn't good. It's that Kyler Murray is spreading the ball out. The leading target player was Christian Kirk with 3 targets. And before you comment down below and tell me I'm an idiot and DeAndre Hopkins was coming back from injury and played limited snaps, no he didn't. He played almost every single snap in this game. He was not limited. We just have to accept he's not a target monster like he used to be. Obviously still a good player in a good offense. Just probably not going to be a top 5 wide receiver rest of the season. All right, another wide receiver, DK Metcalf, who also had 11 fantasy points today. Thankfully, there were some positive signs at least. Russell Wilson did overthrow him on a potential touchdown. Also missed him on another kind of long touchdown pass. Both of those would have really aided a big DK Metcalf day. I'm not quite as panicking as much on him as the other guys because showed some signs today that things could be getting better. The offense looked better, but also he has a really good playoff schedule. Other than the Rams in Week 15, he's got some nice matchups coming up. Starting this week with Houston, I expect a big DK Metcalf week. Let's stick with those wide receivers. Jamar Chase. Remember when Jamar Chase was the Bengals wide receiver 1, was going to break all the rookie records? Yeah, that train has derailed quickly. Out-targeted this week, 14-8 by T. Higgins. T. Higgins is now the guy making the big plays. T. Higgins is now the guy scoring the touchdowns. And in fact, in games that both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins have played, T. Higgins has out-targeted them by over 20 targets. So Jamar Chase, he's a good player. He's going to be a great player, no doubt about it. But maybe he's hitting that rookie wall. But this guy's in top 13 fantasy points in 5 straight games. So if you were thinking about riding him to a fantasy championship, you've got to be panicking because it's unlikely that's going to happen. All right, let's go back to running back with James Robinson. Fumbled last week. Fumbled again this week, and this time it cost him because after that fumble early in the game, Urban Meyer benched him. Now, granted, he did come back late in the first half, and he did play in the second half, but did almost nothing with the touches he got. And we have to be really concerned about 2 things here. Number 1, he's battling some kind of knee injury, similar to Ezekiel Elliott. He keeps missing practices, being a game-time decision. So that's something to panic about right there. And then number 2, is the fact that is he starting to get in Urban Meyer's doghouse? This is 2 straight weeks with a fumble, and this week it cost him playing time. Got to be panicked about James Robinson. He's got a great playoff schedule too, so it's unfortunate that this is happening. But we've got to really worry, is he going to see the bulk of the touches down the stretch, or is the coaching staff losing confidence in James Robinson? Sticking with running back, Myles Gaskin had 3 touchdowns over the last 2 games, and everybody thought, yes, Myles Gaskin, he's a guy you can just count on every single week. Well, he didn't score this week, and what happened? He gave you almost nothing. And that is the problem with Myles Gaskin. It doesn't even matter the matchup, unless it's the Jets, because he does almost nothing outside of scoring touchdowns. Averaged less than 3 yards per carry today in not really a bad matchup against the Giants. Unable to find the end zone, unable to do anything. Myles Gaskin is a guy that is literally touchdown or bust at this point because even with the volume, he just can't rack up enough yards to make himself fantasy relevant because his offensive line is so bad. So certainly you've got to be panicked about Myles Gaskin. He's a guy you got to put in your lineup in good matchups and just cross your fingers that he finds the end zone. Let's go back to wide receiver and Brandon Ayuk. It seems like every time we feel like we can count on Ayuk and trust him, he lets us down. I mean, what do we do with Brandon Ayuk at this point? No Deebo Samuel, going against a terrible Seahawks defense, only had 6 targets, only 3 catches on the day. Not a horrible day, but definitely not what anybody expected in this matchup. We were looking forward to a big Brandon Ayuk day. He'd had a nice stretch there where he was racking up yards, racking up catches, and it looked like finally things were breaking his way. But now without Deebo Samuel barely involved in the offense, so you got to really worry about Brandon Ayuk going forward. He's just going to be an extremely volatile player, not a guy you really want to count on if you don't have to. So certainly if you were counting on him to be your wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, you've got to be panicked. All right, let's finish with a couple rookies, and let's start with Devonta Smith. Minshew Mania looked pretty good, but it didn't help Devonta Smith, right? This is a great matchup against the Jets. The Eagles moved the ball. The problem is Minshew either threw it to Dallas Goedert when he was completely uncovered by the Jets, or he dumped it off to running backs all day. That was really all Minshew did. I do think Jalen Hurts will be better for Devonta Smith, believe it or not. And Nick Sirianni has already said Jalen Hurts is the starter in Week 15, so we don't have to go through this whole Minshew's taking his job nonsense because it's not happening. Devonta Smith is still going to be a very volatile player week to week. We've seen it with Jalen Hurts. He's had some monster games and he's had some terrible games, and that's just the way he's going to be. He's a rookie. It is what it is. Just accept that he's a wide receiver 3 with upside when you put him in your fantasy lineups. And then finally, this is the last time I'm talking about this player because I'm done with this player, and we have to accept that he is a bust for fantasy football, and that is Kyle Pitts. What is it going to take for Kyle Pitts to be fantasy relevant? This was a matchup where Matt Ryan had to throw the ball a ton. Russell Gage had a huge game in this one. That Bucs secondary is not very good, and Pitts still couldn't even crack 9 PPR fantasy points. Look, I think Pitts is going to be a great player, but anybody who drafted Kyle Pitts in the 4th, 5th round, a rookie tight end, and expected him to put up wide receiver type numbers was foolish, and you're getting what you deserve. Kyle Pitts, a complete bust, will not be on this video anymore. Yeah, he may still have one more nice game in him, but that's probably it. He's not a guy you have to start every week at this point. There are better tight end options for you. All right, guys, that does it for this week's Panic Players. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.